Welcome to my second and final vlog of the Sight Black Women's podcast. So to recap, my first vlog covered episodes 0 and 1, and today I'm going to be talking about 4, 5, 7, and 9, kind of just summarizing the episodes and then talking about what from each episode resonated with me, as well as just the whole podcast as a whole. So, starting with episode 4, which was an interview with Dr. Beverly Guy Sheftall and Dr. Erica Williams. And they really just talked about Black women's love and how we can appreciate their work and incorporate it in knowledge production. And what I took from this one was the importance of collaborative writing, which was mentioned by Dr. Erica Williams towards the end of the episode. And she talks about how collaborative writing were the foundations of Black women's work. It pushes the restraints of the canon and the importance of field building work, which is necessary. And I like this point because I never found I like collaborative writing, but I've never felt the impact of it until this semester when we did our ICJs, and I did mine with Chelsea on The Bluest Eye, Toni Morrison. And while we were engaging with each other and talking about our different perspectives, we were somehow in unity with each other and we were really fighting for the same thing. And I kind of compare that to the Black women who were fighting for the same thing, equality, not only in reference to their race but also their gender, and fighting for both. And I think that collaborative writing is really beautiful, and I had such a fun time doing that. And it's not seen enough, or it's not seen enough as it should be. I'm sure Black women have been creating this, as she stated, the foundations of their work. But my question is, why aren't we seeing their collabs as much as we should, unless I enroll in a class like Enterprising Black Woman? So that was my key takeaway, not key, but something that really stuck with me from episode 4. Episode 5 was an interview with Dr. Diana Ramey Berry, and it talked about slavery, commodification, and Black women's erasure. And for me, this episode was extremely, extremely emotional, of the stories that she told, of the souls of the women, of the auctions, of the autopsy. This entire episode was extremely emotional. And a particular story that I want to mention was the story of the slave girl whose home was being invaded by the Yankees, and how they were in search for a treasure, and how that treasure was hidden in her apron, but she was completely overlooked and not seen. So Dr. Berry has made it a priority to tell the stories of the Black girls and the Black women who have always been overlooked in the shadows, in the corners, in the cracks. And this brings me to Hartman and the importance of switching the gaze. So while Black women such as Ida B. Wells, Sojourner Truth, Terrell, Anna Julia Cooper, we talk about them because they were the race leaders and they really fought. But it's also looking at the women in the shadows whose stories were never told. And Hartman did a beautiful job of that. And I really struggled with Hartman from the beginning, and learning and the messages that she was really trying to convey. And I didn't understand it until, I don't want to say understand, but it took me a while to get there, and really until I listened to this podcast where seeing the importance of switching the gaze and the impact that that has, and really understanding that millions and millions of Black women's stories aren't told, and that goes for even the littlest of girls. And again, Toni Morrison showed that, Hartman shows that. And Dr. Berry also says she wants to lay them to rest. Again, Hartman does that, but also recently when we watched The Watermelon Woman, and how while it was fabricated, it wasn't at the same time. So there was indeed a Black woman actress who was lesbian, who struggled with the same things as the woman in the movie. But we want to be able to tell that story, and we want to be able to give those stories validity and tell the story of another Black woman that hasn't been told. So Dr. Berry again was extremely emotional on the commodification and how we erase them, but not only how we erase them, but challenges us to bring them back to life. So now that makes me question, what other Black women or girls am I not listening to, or rather what I'm not finding, because I need to switch my gaze, because the gaze I have currently, or rather that I had before being exposed to this, was just prominent Black women. So that's what I took away from episode 5. Episode 7 was a conversation with Dr. Ashley Farmer, and it really just talks about the Black Power movement and how Black women didn't just pop up during the Black Power movement, but were there the entire time, created the foundations for it, popularized the movement, got it in motion and mobile. She talks about triple oppression, intersection oppression, a lot of class terms that we discussed in class. But what I really loved is she always talks about she talked about how Black women have always had an intersectional lens. And we always talk about the term intersectionality and Crenshaw, and how Black women are definitely not given their due for always having this lens. And they were always not only looking about race, but looking about sex, and how they were doing that in every single movement and simultaneously fighting for both, and still are. And that's something that we really don't look at now, and we just give Crenshaw all the work for it, but this has been happening since Black women have been here. So forever, this has been happening. And lastly, she talks about the politics of citation, which I think was interesting because we always talk about citation and the importance of it, obviously, and this entire podcast talks about it, but not really the politics of it, and how in academia, if you're citing Black women and you're a professor or someone who cites them, then you're not necessarily citing history. And this brings me back to Dr. Manuel Scott's story about how history is written for winners, is written by winners. And this really shows me how intricate citing Black women in academia and higher level education really is, because it's not only about doing the work, but it's the politics that surround the work and how we really deconstruct that, which moves on to her next point of citational justice. And how can we do that is what Kristen asks her, is how can we give these women the citational justice that they deserve. And she talks about creating archives for them, which was going back to my last vlog, is the importance of really archiving and telling their stories, but also through social media, which for my generation is very, very prevalent. And I thought that was interesting, and being purposeful in highlighting their work and documenting their lives. So now I'm triggered to go through my Twitter feed and follow people and accounts that are going to cite Black women, and by doing that, I'm going to retweet them, be purposeful in highlighting and who I'm highlighting, and not just following the canon that's even on my Twitter feed. So that was episode 7. And lastly, episode 9, which was by far my favorite, is centering and celebrating Black women in sociology. So I absolutely loved this episode because it spoke a lot of truths about me and my feelings during this course from beginning all the way to end. And I'm specifically going to focus on 2 panelists, the second and the third. So that's Crystal Fleming and Therese McMillan Kodum. And some of the things that they said and what I took away. So Crystal Fleming talks about being truthful and honest about how we got to this path, or how we got to knowing and citing Black women. And that was extremely emotional for me and hit the T on to what I was feeling during this class. So I felt very shameful about I felt very shameful about not knowing an Anna Julia Cooper or a Terrell or Ida B. Wells or a lot of the women that we talked about in this course, because my peers around me definitely did. And I felt very shameful in not knowing that. And I didn't know how to navigate that space or the uncomfortability that I felt. And Crystal Fleming says part of that work is being truthful in how we got to our path. So part of the work that I'm doing in my social justice world and my goals is knowing that I got to this path during my senior year of college and then continuing that work. And I think that that's so, so important, because I'm not going to sit here and say, I got to knowing Anna Julia Cooper 5 years ago and I've studied her work. No, I've got to knowing her right after this semester. And now it's, what am I going to do with what Anna Julia Cooper taught me? So I really love that Crystal Fleming said that. Another thing that she said and talked about was critical engagement. So we talk about critical care a lot and how we care for the production of knowledge Black women have produced. But she talks about critical engagement, which I thought was amazing. And she says how to critique their work while still receiving it, and asking the question, if this was a white man, would I be receiving it and critiquing it? And that's another thing that I struggled with in this course of, I felt guilty critiquing a Terrell and her takes on politics of respectability and classism, and not a Black woman like Du Bois, and critiquing him, and still, how do I receive that while critiquing it? And that really just showed me that I have a long way to go in deconstructing the ways that I've been taught to receive knowledge, and that there's a way to receive the work of Black women while still critiquing. And that's something, again, that I really, really love that she brought up. And lastly, what Crystal Fleming says is a praxis, so showing a variety of Black women and filling in those gaps. So again, we go back to Hartman, filling in the gaps of women, the little slave girl, all the way to an Anna Julia Cooper, filling in the gaps of everyone in between. And I think that our class has done a really good and comprehensive job of showing Black women from all walks of life. So showing a Polly Murray, showing an Ella Baker, showing an Anna Julia Cooper, showing an Ida B. Wells, showing people with women with privilege, women with the working class, showing all of that. And I think that's really important too. And knowing me and knowing that I can't just focus on an Anna Julia Cooper, but I also have to focus on the girl with treasures in her aprons. And that's also due to Hartman and understanding that. And then the third panelist was Therese McGillen Kodum, and she talked about that I took away the most was class-based relationships and caring for all the women around us, not just in our or specifically her profession, which was sociology. So this was interesting because I go through the same experiences, but with Hispanic women and women of Latin descent or Latina. So she talks about how we have to care for the woman that is the Black woman that's cleaning our office, not just like a Terrell. Just like me, I always had the tendency to care for the gardeners or the housekeepers or the women that look like my grandma or the women that look like my mom, and really just caring for all of them. And again, not limiting or excluding certain Black women because they're not in my class, or in her case, not limiting or excluding Black women because they're not in her profession. So again, this overlapping theme of all Black women and girls and mothers, and go back to Collins because I love that article on who do we deem as an intellectual, right? So we always have to critically engage and critically care for all Black women, not just women in our class and not just women in the same profession. So that's what I took away from the panel. Those two panelists really, really resonated with me, and specifically my feelings of this course. And all the panelists were great, but Crystal Fleming and Therese McGillen Kodum really spoke to me and what they said. So I just want to end the vlog with the question that's been bugging me and a lot of people in our course is, can a woman that is not Black be a Black feminist theorist? And I think this again hits Crystal Fleming's point of knowing your truths and how you got to this path. And I guess my answer to that question is just, I don't know, but I know how I got to the path of knowing and incorporating Black women into my daily life and recognizing them as knowledge producers. I don't know that I could be a Black feminist theorist. Half of me wants to say yes because I am doing the work with the best intention that I have. I am doing it for them to be seen, for them to be valid, for them to be seen as intellectuals, as knowledge producers, everything, sites of possibility, everything that we talk about in class. But half of me feels selfish for saying that I can be a Black feminist theorist because I'm not Black. I'm not a Black woman, and that's something that I really have to know entering this course and in entering the world, and that I cannot speak for them. So I really don't know the answer, and it's still something that I'm really navigating while doing this work, and the work that I'm going to be doing outside of this class is, yes, I can critically engage, and yes, I can critically care, but can I critically be a Black feminist theorist? And that's something that I'm still struggling with. I'm still trying to answer. But this class has definitely made me, as well as the podcast really, has made me more equipped, more aware, and more ready to engage with Black women critically, to care for Black women, to recognize Black women, and to take the work that I've learned in this podcast and outside of the class and inside of the class and take it to my perspective field of being a lawyer, and really how do I incorporate Black women in the legal field. And I look at Paula Mori for that, and I look at who am I fighting for in this society. And that's kind of where the entire podcast has left me. I know that's a lot, and I probably went over my time limit, but that's everything that I wanted to say. I really love Cite Black Women, Cite with a C and Cite with an S, and really just seeing Black women in society and whether or not I could be a Black feminist theorist. So, thank you.